So people are wondering, what is my perspective on the Trump assassination attempt 2.0? Do I think this was the deep state? No, I do not. If this was the deep state, they wouldn't have missed. There's a myriad ways the deep state could terminate somebody if they decided to, that don't involve the use of firearms. And if they did want to go that route, these guys know every possible angle of the Secret Service that you could imagine. So no, I don't believe that this was a high-level conspiracy. Could this have been a subsidiary of the interagency? You know, it's possible, but let me tell you what I think this was. In the modern day, as we're a nation in decline, and by a nation I mean the West is in decline, you're going to have more radicalized, extremist, hypersensitive, over-medicated people who are going to do very hysterical and unhinged things. And that's what this is. The fact that there's been 2 attempts is perfectly in line with what the proponents of the Trump camp call Trump derangement syndrome. This is perfectly in line. This is a classic example, which is why I don't understand why so much attention is being given. If you're a Trump supporter, you should be citing this as an example of the extremism of Trump derangement syndrome. It's called stochastic terrorism. Terrorist acts which are motivated by unjustified political rhetoric, which is being spurred on by the mainstream media. That's what people should be arguing. Instead, they go right off into, oh, it was the deep state, it was the interagency. They don't miss. If they want him gone, he will be gone. Trump has protection, okay? The fact that he's on the ballot at all tells you that he has protection. Now, if you really want to understand what's going on, you need to really look at foreign policy, because as the empire is in decline, it's all about foreign policy at this point in time. Where is the next war going to be? Is the war going to be in Iran, or is it going to be Russia? That's essentially what we're voting for. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. There's 2 camps, and they appear to be possibly even hostile towards one another. There's the jingoists, and there are the globalists. Trump is a jingoist, American exceptionalism. The globalists have a different strategy. They want to fight peer-to-peer wars. They believe they can actually win a nuclear war. They believe in the strategic defeat of our peer adversaries without it necessarily becoming nuclear, but that if it does go nuclear, we can still win it. But going back to these unhinged individuals, understand it's not hard to radicalize somebody online nowadays. It really isn't. You get a few bots, you find the right incel, you find the right person who is, again, over-medicated or under-medicated, somebody who's had it way too good for too long, like most of us have. And I do believe that we're starting to see the pitfalls of conspicuous consumption in the West. We're starting to see the result of people just taking everything for granted, okay? They haven't had that luxury, the luxury that we've had to become so spoiled, to have so much time on our hands, to get bitter and indignant about things that we ought not get bitter and indignant about. But with this guy, he was radicalized into the pro-Ukrainian camp. And they wiped his social media right away, probably because they don't want to have that on the record, or they wanted to minimize that in the public view, that this guy was a hardline supporter of Ukraine, which so was the guy who attempted to assassinate Robert Fico and a few others. They all tend to be of the blue-haired menace ilk, we'll say. So again, this is, people think, oh, it's got to be some deep state conspiracy. They're not going to send, these are not the type of people that are going to associate. Again, maybe by proxy, like Like somebody knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy on these various interagency payrolls, and then maybe in some way, shape, or form they find their way to this propagandistic bottom feeder who they then, provoke into trying to do some crazy shit. But the problem with that is, if that's really their strategy, it's a terrible strategy, because 99 times out of 100 the guy's going to miss, and then that's only going to make the problem worse. The only people who stand to benefit from this are the Russians or the Chinese, because, and I'm not saying they were the ones behind it, the only people who benefit from civil unrest, and the only way Russia defeats the United States, not in a nuclear war, but in anything less than a nuclear war, is by a civil war, is by civil unrest. Vladimir Putin doesn't give a shit who comes into the Oval Office, because he knows ultimately the foreign policy is the same: world domination. The jingoists would like to do it by imperializing smaller, either defenseless countries or countries that are not peer adversaries, near peers, maybe like Iran, and even that's pushing it. No, they're going to go and feed on the low-hanging fruit first, and they're going to try to take over the resources that the superpowers need, that their peers need. So that is their approach. So there's really just two approaches. Both of our leaders, and it's not like they have to do this, it's just this is the cycle that we're locked into with trying to keep the US dollar propped up. Because as soon as the United States ceases to be the most powerful military in the world, then with that, so goes the what do you call it? Geez, having a brain fart here. The international currency, the global reserve currency. So with it goes that. He who has the most guns that can guard the vaults has the global reserve currency. But that's not guaranteed. And if the American military starts to wane in its global significance, it will be in decline. It's really just two gangs with two different strategies, two different game plans for how they're going to keep the US dollar propped up. The globalists believe that they can fight the Russians, that they can confiscate and freeze their assets, and that they can attrit the Russians in a way which is not going to lead to nuclear war. And if it does, they have a plan B. They actually genuinely believe, and I have the plan. I'm going to share it with you. It's a report that was just written. It goes into exceptional amounts of depth about how they're going to, they legitimately believe that they can defeat the Russians and the Chinese in a strategic conflict. And the reason why I didn't say nuclear conflict, because they believe that it doesn't even have to go nuclear. And that is the crazy thing. That's the globalist point of view. The jingoists want to imperialize, but they want to do it through the Middle East first. So of course, doing it through the Middle East, Iran is in their crosshairs. Now, if you do that, because of the entanglement that we find ourselves in as this World War III continues, this slow motion train wreck continues, we start to see the consolidation of the axis, if you will, the big axis, the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians. As we start to sanction them more and more, they start to become more unified with one another, and they start to become more interdependent. If we go against Iran, that's going to hurt Russia. Putin knows that Trump camp, all they're saying is bluster. This idea that they're just going to, make peace with the Russians, complete and utter bullshit. I've talked about it before. Trump was one of the main reasons why the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty failed, which is one of the most important, and which is why they're going to be putting nukes back in Germany very soon. But in addition to that, in his campaign are hardline neocons, like Lindsey Graham, the most hardest of neocons. Okay, this guy was essential for the Maidan coup and what happened in Ukraine. Okay, so this notion that Putin thinks that Trump is a better bet, Putin doesn't give a shit. And no, I'm not talking about, there was a recent comment that Putin made in jest where he said that he thought that we should support Harris because she's, I don't know, he likes her laugh or something silly like that. And he wasn't being serious, he was being sarcastic, but a lot of people took that as he doesn't care who wins. And they've made that explicitly clear in statements not only by Putin, but other high-ranking Russian officials. Maria Zakharova, one of the foreign ministers, has said it. It's like, it doesn't matter who you elect on a sinking ship or who the captain is on a sinking ship or like competing to be a captain on a sinking ship, doesn't matter. So again, the Russians only stand to benefit by a civil war. And the more misses you have, the greater the likelihood of civil unrest when election day comes around. Because each one of these misses, in fact, benefits the Trump campaign. So if you're the deep state, you're not going to miss, man. What concerns me most, okay, is these radicalized elements when shit hits the fan. There is a latent psychosis. I don't want to say psychopathy, because it's not psychopathy, it's psychosis that permeates Western society, but namely the United States of America. I love the United States of America. I've even considered applying for citizenship, believe it or not, but we got to call a spade a spade. There's a lot of crazy motherfuckers, okay, everywhere. Even in Canada, there's crazy motherfuckers. But you guys, you know, what does George Carlin say? You know, when you're born in the world, you get a ticket to the freak show, and if you're in the United States, you get a front row seat. Man, I wish he was still alive today, just to hear what he has to say about this situation. What worries me is these unhinged individuals in an SHTF situation, not because of the psychopathic component, but of the psychotic, just the hypersensitive, easily triggered. And it's not even just the snowflakes. It's not even just the blue-haired menace. It's just the average guy who's had it so good and he's put off by the dumbest shit that he flips a switch in the middle of traffic because somebody cuts him off without, using a signal light, and he just goes rogue. I mean, we have it so good that we have the luxury of bitching about those things. And a lot of people who would have been checked a long time ago by a system that was rightfully built on a certain degree of corporal punishment, you do something bad, you get checked for it, either from your parents or the principal, and everybody, they turn out all right. Some people take it too far, but you turn out all right. You know what I mean? We have a society of people who've just been pampered and shuffled through the system. Participation badges, and this is what we get. And these people are going to be a force to be reckoned with because of the unpredictable nature, the psychotic nature, not the psychopathic. Psychopaths are people who have no emotions. These people have extreme levels of emotions, okay, that they just simply cannot control because they're just little kids throwing tantrums. Their parents have never disciplined them, right? And there's plenty of ways to discipline. I'm not only talking about corporal punishment in the physical sense. Parents just don't discipline. And this is the result. It's just a bunch of little kids throwing tantrums everywhere, and they're easily subdued by these brainwashing campaigns going on right now. There's a reason why my channel is range bound. There's a reason why we seldom get over 300K views, but we consistently do that. And anytime we get a short that goes viral, we just get loads of subscribers. And anytime one of my videos gets put out there and actually put on the sidebar, it gets loads. It's because I don't promote the narratives. They would actually be fine if I was up in here doing the Trump thing, doing the Ben Shapiro thing. They'd be fine with that. They don't want people who think. I'm just a little bit of a sidebar there. Sorry to go on a tangent, but something I've been thinking about lately is I think that I'm getting close to being on the edge of being deleted. And I think we've been very careful with how we've approached things so far, because I don't think getting canceled by just saying things without a filter is a good strategy. And so I have a strategy for how I disseminate information. And but I believe that increasingly more so, the emperor is panicking, and they are worried, and they're going after RT. They're going after many people who are affiliated, and the only reason why they would be doing that is if they knew war was coming. So all of these crazy people, these residuals who are kind of just the byproduct of all of this propaganda, you know, they're not deep state actors. They're just a side effect, you know. Anyways, guys, it's a beautiful September night. September is my favorite month because there's no bugs. It's not hot, but it's still warm. The days are still kind of long. It's just so peaceful. And then you get the leaves starting to turn, and oh man, I just love September so much. We got a lot of great stuff coming your way on the channel. Despite being throttled by the algorithm, we're going to persist. We'll keep trying new things to try to break this, what appears to be a glass ceiling. Because I've seen some content from other creators, and it just seems to be devoid of any unique observations and analysis, and it's just getting pumped really, really hard. And those are the same people who are creating these latent psychotics who are getting ready to just unleash chaos. And it's not going to be, it's not going to be like organized chaos. Like these are just individuals. These are people acting individually. Individuals gone rogue. But we're going to see a lot more of it. And the more of it we see, the more the other side is going to react in kind. And it's just going to continue with this downward spiral. The Russians right now are laughing their ass off at these incidents, and so are the Chinese. I'm going to leave it at that for the night. You guys take care. We will see you tomorrow.